I used to believe that once you had chronic kidney disease, then that was it, you were pretty much stuck for life. I thought there was not much you could do, except tweak it as best you can and hope to goodness that it didn't get worse. Maybe you've heard the same. I really believed it too. But I don't anymore. Because of something my doctor showed me, I now know there's an awful lot you can do to manage CKD, and what you can do turned out to be literally life-changing. CKD isn't a life sentence. I was diagnosed with chronic kidney disease, CKD, just over 2 years ago. My doctor explained that there is a number of reasons why we get CKD. But it was always caused by something else that was already going wrong in the body. Diabetes, heart disease, various cardiovascular diseases, being very overweight and so on. They can all cause CKD. High blood pressure was the cause of my CKD. Your CKD may have a different cause. But the result is the same. My doctor told me that chronic kidney disease can't be tackled directly. Instead, doctors address the diseases that cause it in the first place. Which, for me, meant tackling my blood pressure problem. It might be a different fight for you depending on what's causing your own CKD. But whatever the cause, the strategy is the same: alleviate the problems of the CKD itself while addressing the underlying disease that is causing the CKD in the first place. Unfortunately, using standard methods, CKD can, and often does, get progressively worse. As it gets worse, it becomes a significantly more threatening disease. There was no way I could just accept that. No way. Fortunately, I didn't have to accept it. I did something else instead. Which has meant that these days I can't remember what CKD even feels like anymore. But before I jump ahead of myself, let me make this important point. Chronic kidney disease, the 5 stages. My doctor taught me something very worrying about CKD. The disease has 5 stages. Stage 1 is the mildest. Stage 5 is as serious as it gets. Stage 5 can shorten a person's life by many, many years. You do not want to reach stage 5. A slippery slope to stage 5. My CKD was at stage 3 when it was discovered. Most of us only discover our CKD when it's already well underway. The danger here is that CKD gets progressively worse. Doctors find it very difficult to halt CKD's progress into stages 4 and then 5. At stage 5 you are plugged into a dialysis machine. You hope and pray for a suitable kidney donor so that you can squeeze some more years out of life, before finally succumbing. Well, no thanks. Dialysis machines and kidney transplants were not for me. I didn't care that other people coped with being strapped to a dialysis machine for hours on end 4 or 5 times a week. That's them. It's not me. And I didn't care that, for people lucky enough to find kidney donors, better transplant techniques meant that they weren't dying so quickly afterwards. As far as I was concerned, once you reach the kidney dialysis machines and transplant stage, your days are numbered. Again, no thanks. I had, and still have, many years of life ahead of me. And I wanted those years to be healthy, happy, enjoyable. Not ill, diseased, watching my clock run down. This wasn't the life I wanted. I felt very low, to be honest. My doctor gave me the standard spiel: we can handle the symptoms, we can try to address underlying causes, with the right meds you could lead a fairly normal life. And so on. I told him this wasn't good enough. I didn't want my life cut short with a disease that, at least officially, had no way of being reversed. I didn't want to watch myself deteriorate week by week. I didn't want to be plugged into a dialysis machine. I didn't want a transplant. And I didn't want to die early. I was very upset. I didn't know what to do next. But I didn't want to just do nothing. There is an alternative, and it's proven. I've known my doctor since college. He's a trusted friend. He told me to come back at the end of the day and we could go for a coffee and a chat. He had something important to tell me. Well, what my doctor told me that afternoon was jaw-dropping. He described how he'd witnessed 5 of his own patients treat their chronic kidney disease to the point that they now experienced none of its symptoms. Here's the thing: they had first treated the underlying cause, the condition that gave rise to their CKD in the first place. That had led to the melting away of both that condition's symptoms and their CKD symptoms. Which was staggering. We're talking about diabetes, cardiovascular disease, high blood pressure, obesity here. He wouldn't claim they no longer had the disease. Professionally, he's not allowed to say that yet. Tests are still taking place, official verification is required, that takes years to complete. But when one of his own patients attempted an alternative health approach to his chronic kidney disease, and by all measures, succeeded. My doctor couldn't ignore that. The effects weren't temporary, they lasted. My doctor explained that conventional medicine was still testing these new remedies. But ordinary people had jumped straight in and had been applying them for some years. No drugs, no hospitals, and the results were fantastic. I was excited and nervous when I heard this. But everything we discussed that day I went on to prove to myself.